Hi, welcome to another Jen Stampin' for Fun Watch It Wednesday video. I just want to quickly show you a very cool technique called hot glue embossing. And what you'll need for this is some watercolor cardstock available through Stampin' Up! And I am also using some Whisper White cardstock and some Rose Red cardstock. I will need to get those measurements for you. Let me just see. The watercolor cardstock is 2 inches by 3 3/4. Okay, and then the Whisper White is 1/4 of an inch bigger. It's 2 1/4 inches by 4 inches. And then the Rose Red is 1/4 inch wider around. These are just mats for the cards, so it'll be 2 1/2 inches by 4 1/4 inches. That's the Rose Red. Okay, so let me show you how it works. First, what you can do is take your watercolor piece of cardstock, and what I've got here is my hot glue gun and the silicone mat. It's just if anything drips out, it'll fall on the silicone mat instead of on your furniture or anything like that. And what you're going to do is do some funky random design. You can do whatever you want. I'm just going to kind of just go around with it, and you'll just have to keep applying pressure on the glue gun. Okay, any kind of design will work. Okay, and then we're just going to let that dry. Okay, so I'll put that aside and let this dry. And then in the meantime, I will stick together the other 2 mats. I'm just going to use our snail adhesive, and we'll stick the Whisper White onto the Rose Red and stick that down. Okay, and then I'm just using a Whisper White card base. So this is an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper cut in half, and then we will just fold it in half here. Okay, so it's actually getting folded at the 4 1/4 mark, and this will go on here. So I'm just letting the hot glue dry. We'll put that aside, stick that on here with more snail. Okay, and I am going to put a little sentiment at the bottom of the card using our archival black ink and the Cottage Greetings stamp set. This stamp set actually matches with the Cottage Greetings card kit, but it can totally be used on its own. I love the font. It's so pretty, but I'm going to use the one that says "You Are Amazing." So we'll grab that out and then use our black ink pad to stamp it. Okay, put that aside. And straight down and straight up. You are amazing. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll lay that aside. We've got the base of our card all set for the final card. We'll take back our hot glue creation, and I'm just kind of checking if it's dry. If it's not totally dry, I might just give it a little tiny bit of heat from the heat gun. Pull that over. But actually, hot glue can dry pretty quickly. Give it just on setting 1. I'll just do a quick dry, and I'll move it around really quickly there. See if that helps it to dry at all. Okay, yeah, it's almost dry. Hot glue can dry pretty quickly, so we'll just put that down. And what I'm going to do is actually spritz using our spritzer. I've just filled it with water, and I am just going to spritz onto the watercolor cardstock here. Spritzers are funny. You'd swear that you're spritzing on the thing and on the cardstock, and you're actually spritzing in some other place. But anyway, hopefully we've got it here. Now my whole sheet is wet, but we won't panic. It's just water. Okay, I don't even know if it's wet enough. What you want to see are dribbles of water on the cardstock. Okay, that's a bit better, I think. And then inside just an empty embellishment container, I've put some Rose Red re-inker, and I'll use my aqua painter. And this is just it's called an aqua painter. It's just a tube filled with water here, and the water can run through the brush. So I'll just kind of squeeze, get some water going, grab some of that rose red reinker, and I'm just going to touch it. See how it's spreading there? I'm just going to touch it to the watercolor, and then you're just going to paint however you want. Okay? Just let the water spread all over. Some will be darker, some will be lighter. That's totally okay. See, I feel like I don't have too much water. I like it when it's more watery because it just gives it more of an artsy look when the ink sort of spreads all over the place. Okay, but some parts will be drier, so it'll be darker. That's fine. And I'm squeezing the barrel of the aqua painter as well to make some water, make it more watery. Okay, and you don't have to color all the parts in, it's just whatever. That's sometimes the fun thing about art, is that you can just let it go where it wants to, and that every time you make a card like this, it'll be different. It's not going to be the same. Everyone is going to be different. Okay, so we've colored the background with a bit of rose red reinker, and that's what I love about Stampin' Up! Products. I'm using the rose red reinker, and I've got the rose red cardstock, so there's going to be some immediate color matching there. We don't have to worry about the colors clashing at all. Okay, and so now this is completely wet, so we are going to try to dry it on level 1 setting of our heat gun. On the heat gun there are 2 settings. I think it's hard to see there. Yeah, oh, there you can see it a bit better there. See how there's 0, 1, and 2? 1 is sort of like a hair dryer setting where we're trying to dry things, and 2 is where it's like super duper hot. So let's just do it on 1 and just try to dry the watercolor paper there. Get that dried up. Okay, so we're just trying to dry off the water that I spritzed onto the watercolor paper. Hopefully you can hear me with this heat gun going. Okay, shouldn't take too long. Let's take a look there. Yep, it's a little damp, but it's drying up. It's drying up. We might be able to... Okay. Great. So then, now that that's dry, what we're going to do is we're going to use our friend, the embossing buddy. And we're actually going to do some embossing. So whenever you do embossing, it's really good to have the embossing buddy to try to, it's almost like to take away the static on the paper so that when we pour the embossing powder, it'll stick exactly where we want it to stick. So I'm just going to kind of, and I'll try to get into these little crevices too, in between the glue, to just cover the whole thing with the embossing buddy. Okay, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to use the heat gun on level 2. So we are actually going to try to melt, the hot glue that has already dried. Okay, so this is like a multi-step process here. Setting it on level 2, and we're going to try to melt our hot glue just a little bit, just so that it's sticky. There we go. You can tell it's working when it starts to look like more transparent. Okay, let's give that a try. It should be a little bit sticky. Oh yeah, it's sticky there. Okay, and then we're actually going to pour our embossing powder on top. This is gold embossing powder from Stampin' Up! Let's see, I think you can see the lid there. It's a gold embossing powder. So it should now stick to the hot glue. Okay, so can you see how the embossing powder has stuck on? We still have some little pieces. Our embossing buddy didn't do a completely perfect job, but that's okay. This is kind of an artsy sort of card anyway, so if we've got some loose powder on it, it's okay. Okay, and then we're going to, the great thing about this embossing powder is you can reuse it and reuse it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to funnel this back into the jar so that we can reuse it next time. Okay, so a little jar like this will last a really long time. Let's close that up. Okay. I find that sometimes that gold powder does leave a bit of a little mess over here, which you'll have to clean up later, but that's okay. As long as we got most of it back in the jar, we're feeling good. Okay, so here's our centerpiece with the gold embossing powder on the hot glue, and then we're going to set it on setting 2 again, and we're going to melt the embossing powder and watch it just turn shiny. It's so fun. This is my favorite part. Look at that. Oh, I love it. I love it. So fun to see it go all shiny. There we go. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, see how it was kind of a dull powder before? Now it's all shiny. And then we'll just stick it on the front of the card. Just be careful if the glue is still a bit wet. You don't want to burn your fingers or get your fingers stuck on it. So I'll just put the adhesive on this side and then just stick that right on top. There we go. Isn't that fun? And here's another one that I did with just a different design. Okay, so, I mean, you could certainly try to do different shapes if you wanted, but I found when I tried to do a heart or whatever, like it's so hard to control how the glue was coming out of the hot glue gun. It just looked like a very deformed heart, so I thought it might be better to just go random all around. And then here's one that I did with different colors, with a different design. This was more with the Tangelo Twist and Calypso Coral colors. Okay, so I hope you like that new technique. Go ahead and play around with it and have fun creating. Thanks for watching. If there's anything you need, like the embossing powder or the watercolor paper, any supplies you need, you can always visit my website, www.genevieve.stampinup.net. Hit the Shop Now button and check out my online store, or just browse around on my website. There's lots of creative ideas there. Thanks for watching. Bye.